Get the show on the road. All right. We'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order on July 14th, 2026 at 6:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody like to speak under public participation this evening? Okay. For the record, there is no public participation. We will start with item number 4 this evening. Tammy Bunner requests a permit touch a truck on Saturday, September 12th, 2026. Tammy, if you please step forward. And the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. This is our third year for Touch a Truck, and we are requesting the same street closure that we did last year. The 3 streets around Scully Park, and extending 2 of the streets 1 block past there. So Clinton will be closed from Kickapoo to Hamilton. McLean is closed from Pulaski to Decatur. The Touch a Truck will be 9 to 1 p.m. We ask for the closure to be from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. for setup and takedown. Any questions? Are you familiar with Touch a Truck?
Yep.
So Touch a Truck, what we do is we bring in semis, farm equipment. These guys back here are big contributors. I want to thank them for giving up their Saturdays. We bring in Lincoln City Police, Logan County Paramedics, Logan County Sheriff's Office, Lincoln Fire, Lincoln Rural Fire. We have a tree service that comes in, school bus. Last year we got a great big quad tractor. They're parked around Scully Park, and the kids are able to talk to the operators, climb on the machines, honk the horns, and all of that. It's free, open to the public. We provide some kiddie things like face painting and balloon twisting. And the only thing they have to pay for is food trucks if we get food trucks. So this is our 3rd year, and it's been really fun for the kids.
It's a great event.
It really is a lot of fun.
Yep. Anybody have questions for Tammy on the event? Ms. Bateman.
I just have a question on your thing. On the picnic tables, you have leave as is. You meaning the ones that are there currently just?
Yes.
Because those belong to the county. So
Yeah.
you don't need any additional
No.
tables? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. So is the council okay placing that on the consent agenda? Okay.
All right.
We'll place it on the consent.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay, the next item up is item number 5, Community Development Block Grant Projects Discussion. So this discussion may take a little bit, but in order to keep this conversation moving, here's what I'd like to request. I'll do some introductions so that the council's familiar with all of the individuals that have been working with me and others. Wes and Walt have been on the call too. And then I'm going to turn it over to Uriah from LEAD. You guys have met Uriah already. And he's going to talk about the grants and then the options for each one of those. We have a couple projects that we're going to present to you for consideration tonight. And then a gentleman named Greg Sutton. He is not on the call yet, but Warren may be able to step in and answer for him. Greg is going to talk about the grant writing process because we're going to be requesting to do a grant. We'll open it up for questions, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So if you would, hold your questions until we get to that point, and then we'll address them. So with that, as I said, this evening what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Oasis building, and then we're going to talk about some continued streetscape. And what we mean by streetscape, Steve's been here the longest. He's very familiar with it, but in front of Pulaski Street, the new sidewalks, the inlays, the concrete that's in front of the businesses on Pulaski. We'd like to submit for a grant to continue to do that down Kickapoo Street, and depending on money and cost, possibly Broadway. So we've been meaning to continue this work, and so we're going to talk about those. There are grant options available through DCEO, and we've got the right players involved. I've talked with Wendy Bell with DCEO, and she assures me that the individuals that are going to speak to you tonight are the right people to help us move this forward. So with that being said, Uriah is with LEAD. You guys have met Uriah. He actually lives in our building down there on Broadway Street. Annie Kors is on the phone. Annie has been working with us, brainstorming ideas. And former president of New Holland. She also works for Tremont Bank. She's on Civic. Annie's just she's a go-getter, and she gets things done. So Annie's been at the table with us. Marcy was brought to the table from Jeff Terselli. I've been working with Jeff and Warren on the Enterprise Zone, and Marcy can tackle any of the engineering type questions that we may have. And then Warren works with Jeff Terselli, and they have separate businesses, but they will assist the DCEO portion, and they have the connections and they know the process to work through DCEO. Greg Sutton is not on the phone, but he's the gentleman that will write the grant for us. Okay. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Any questions on anybody I mentioned? Okay. With that then, Uriah, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Welch. For those city council members that I've met, it's been a pleasure to be able to meet you, and I look forward to getting a chance to meet any of the city council members that I have yet to meet. I'm honored to be back in Lincoln, and I'm really thrilled to be able to look through some different opportunities to be able to help improve the city. As Mayor Welch had alluded to, we're talking a little bit about the community development block grants, and specifically the commercial revitalization fund. That's a portion of it. The commercial revitalization fund has some of the most funds available for us to be able to apply for. Some of those include demolition funds as well as rehabilitation funds, but like all forms of state and federal money, they tend to have quite a few strings attached. When it comes to the funds that we're seeking here today, it's going to be demolition funds for the Oasis building. The strings attached to that are that the city has to be in possession of it at the point of selection, and that the property has to remain as a green space for 5 years. Now, I kind of went through and did a point-by-point analysis, wrote a letter of support for Mayor Welch. I'm not sure whether or not that's been disseminated, but I'm going to go through that briefly if I could. The options for renovation for the Oasis building, which is 501 Pulaski, it sits on the corner there of Pulaski and Kickapoo. It would be absolutely more beneficial for us to be able to renovate the building. However, the nature of the dilapidation and blight in it makes it a untenable challenge. The letter of support that I wrote has a list of pros and cons for both the renovation and the demolition. The pros would include that it preserves a historic and architecturally significant structure in Lincoln, leaves the door open for a redeveloper to invest in and reuse the building, and that we do have some tools that can offset some of the cost. And some of the other tools that could be available would be through historical tax credits and state and federal grants. However, the cost estimation is between $920 and $2.1 million in order to renovate that building. Likely to be on the higher end because the inside of that building, from a discussion with Wes, it seems like there's a significant amount of work that would need to be done. And because we would have to meet, or any redeveloper would have to meet, the historical preservation guidelines, it doesn't get any simpler when we add those guidelines. The required strong annual return needed to break even is going to be about $131,000 for the low end of that project and about $307,000 for the high end per year. And most commercial redevelopments are looking at longest at a 7-year break even period. The city incentives that we have to be able to help would be of some assistance to be able to offset that, but not significant enough to truly reattract a redeveloper. And the way that I look at it is renovation is only possible if a developer has identified themselves to the city of Lincoln or to anybody else to say, we've got the experience and the capacity to be able to do this, and we would like to be able to do this. I was involved in the city of Peoria. That was where I came from for this position with LEED. And the incentive stack and the incentive structure that Peoria was proposing, and that still hasn't been solidified yet, for the redevelopment of the PNC Bank building, which is not dilapidated, it's still very easily occupiable, has involved basically giving away the entirety of the TIF district to the redevelopment, as well as some annual money to be able to have that building repurposed, as well as leveraging historical tax credits. And I think we would be pretty hard up as a city to recommend something like that. Which leads us to the second option, which is tragic for the loss of a historic structure, but that's for demolition. The CDBG grant does allow for a fund of $250,000 for a single parcel unit, which we figure that's going to cover the majority of it. There may be up to $50,000 in additional incidental expenses. It does remove a safety hazard from downtown. Continued exposure to the elements is expected to worsen the blight that's already present in that property, and it provides a demolition of that property with minimal cost to the city if it's secured. As I mentioned before, there is a 5-year hiatus on any future development of the property, but it does free it up after those 5 years for adaptive reuse for the benefit of downtown. And it also allows us to act pretty quickly if we're selected for CDBG funding, and to show that the city of Lincoln is taking action on trying to improve the downtown space. One of the other things I'd like to note is in the downtown redevelopment strategy on page 17, it was referenced that one of the strategies that Lincoln should employ is to create open and leisure spaces in the downtown area other than Scully and Latham Parks, and this will also satisfy that. They've identified that the corner of Kickapoo and Pulaski Streets act as the major arteries in order to get into downtown Lincoln, and to be able to have a leisure space that is thoughtfully designed in that area could be useful for downtown redevelopment and attraction. So with that being said, my recommendation is to apply for the demolition funds for the CDBG grant for the Oasis building, unless there is a benefactor that comes forward that says, you know, the Oasis building means a lot to me, I've got some extra funds, I'd like to put this forward. In lieu of that, then I think it's the most prudent decision to apply for the demolition funds. The second portion of this is the community development block grant for the downtown streetscape. That one's incredibly straightforward, in my opinion. You guys have completed a downtown Lincoln revitalization downtown streetscape plan, and as the city continues to utilize funds in order to make this happen, it makes the most sense to me for us to apply for state and federal level funds to have the government pay for them. There's not a lot of details in this one that I think would be hard for us to be able to sell to the community. We're just investing in the downtown to make it more beautiful and more attractive to local tourists. That will be my time. I believe the next step would be Greg Sutton, or if Greg was able to join in, but it doesn't look like he, let me scroll over here and see if he's joined in. It doesn't look like he's been able to make
He's
it.
not, but
So I'm not sure if one of you'd be able to speak to this.
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of Greg. Are you ready, Mayor? Is that okay?
yep, go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, so, I've been involved with the Community Development Block Grant Program for a number of years. In a previous life, I was the director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity that has to approve these funds. The demolition component is a relatively new component of the community revitalization program, and it is a $250,000 grant. The CDBG is probably one of the most complicated grant applications that is out there. It's federally funded, and under this particular notice of funding opportunity. They have committed $13 million. The grant award range is from $250,000 to $2 million, but on a demolition project, it is capped at $250,000. The streetscape improvement part of it is $1 million. You can do 2 simultaneous grant applications, but as I understand it, and just and talking with the mayor and Uriah, is that I think the focus probably is on the demolition piece, which again is new, and I can just tell you from experience, has not been any other grant opportunities out there in the past that focused on demolition. But I mentioned that the total award under this program is 13 million, and this applies to all downstate communities that are non-entitlement communities. Sorry, and I'll turn my camera on. I should have done that earlier. And because of that, it is going to be highly competitive. And even though this is sort of an ongoing grant program, these funds will go quickly. So, I would encourage, the city, if you wanted to go this direction, to pursue a grant opportunity as quickly as possible. Again, these are complicated. There's a lot of steps you have to go through because it's federal funded. There has to be a public hearing, and there's just a number of steps that have to be undertaken. But it can be done. Greg Sutton, who I know has a proposal before you, is a very accomplished grant writer. Greg and I worked together for, I don't know, probably 25 years or so. And these are complicated, but he and his company knows how to put these together. It's your decision, obviously, as a council, if you want to pursue this option of demolition. I would agree with Uriah that rehabilitation is probably not a viable option, just based on costs. So, and I know that it's hard to lose a structure like that, but I think it's probably beyond its useful life, and this would likely be the best option. And with Greg, and by the way, Greg and I have worked together, but I'm not affiliated with him, and we're not receiving any compensation out of this. I am working with the city and the county on the enterprise zone work, but we're just trying to help support the city and county in any way that we can. And this funding opportunity came available, and I think it's a viable option for you if you choose to go that direction, but that's totally your decision. So I'm only here to kind of offer information and answer any questions that you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Warren. Okay, with that, I think I'll go ahead and open it up. What questions does the council have? Ms. McClellan?
Is there a fee for Mr. Sutton that we need to talk
There
about?
is, as Warren indicated, Mr. Sutton has sent me an engagement letter for assistance with writing the grant. The fee for that is $9,500 payable upon execution of the agreement. There are also travel expenses, including mileage, per diem, not to exceed $50 for meals and $200 for overnight stays per consultant. I don't anticipate that we're going to have a lot of that. As you can see, we can get a lot done through remote calls. I've already had some remote calls with this group. And I guess since you've asked that question, I reached out to Mr. Conzo earlier today with line items, options for paying that fee, and I'll let him speak about that. Mr. Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the options we have, since this is going to be a public space, I'm assuming that's what it'll be used for based on the conversation that I had with the mayor earlier and what we've heard here tonight, we could use the GEO bond money, which has not been allocated at this point for specific lines, but has been allocated, I believe, in a specific amount in the appropriation ordinance of $175,000 to be used for various things. The only thing we have designated at this point in time is some fire equipment in the amount of about $35,000. So it is possible, if the council so chooses to proceed with this, to use that money for said grant writing expenditure.
Okay. And Mr. Sutton has joined us on the call. What other questions do we have?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Greg. Warren filled in for you, but is there anything you'd like to share with the council regarding the grant writing process? Anything from your perspective?
I think as Mr. Mayor, as we discussed previously, while this grant is a rolling grant, as the state calls them, there is a limited amount of funds in this pool. So it would be, from a timeline perspective, it would be prudent to apply sooner rather than later for this grant, just so we don't run up against all of the grant funds being expended on other applications.
Okay. And I did run into Wendy Bell with DCEO during the grand opening of the museum, and she has confirmed that they have already started receiving applications. So just so that you're aware of that. Okay, what other questions? Mr. Becky.
My questions may be sprawled out, so they're not directed to anyone specifically, but all, I guess, and who's best to answer.
Sure.
So the complexity, understood that it's a federal grant and there may be hearings and stuff that's necessary, but what else makes it so complicated in this process? Is this something that's going to take a month to put together, a week, or what's the time frame for something that complicated? And what does that include?
Greg, maybe that's a good question for you.
Sure. Usually it takes several months of fairly rigorous time to actually put these together. There are public hearings that need to be scheduled and documented. There is a lot of detailed information, in particular for the demolition grant. It is a new component in the CDBG grant process. So there is the potential of a lot of back and forth with the agency as we develop the application, just to confirm all the requirements and the documentation that is required. Currently, the application that is to be used, the state uniform grant application to be used, does not currently have all of the demolition components in it. So there's a possibility that new things may come up as new requirements may come up as we complete this application. There is some potential interaction with, if you're familiar with the state historic preservation requirements that we may need to meet, and that takes time and may have additional questions that we have to get answered, as well as any potential environmental concerns.
So
Craig,
hypothetically,
I'm sorry, this
sorry, go
this
ahead.
is Warren, but, so is that like a pre-application requirement, or is that like post-award, or?
We would have to address those things in the application. So it would be during the application process. There may be, once an award is made, there may be additional items that are negotiated that need to be done based on any additional requirements from the grant award.
so then,
I'm sorry, Mayor, but as I mentioned earlier, that these CDBG are one of the most complicated application processes and requires more documentation. I mean, you know, I sit in that seat that had to approve these, and they are cumbersome, but you know, it's a good funding opportunity for downstate communities. There's not a lot of those out there, honestly.
Mr. Becky?
so hypothetically, if it were today, what is usually a timeline for something like that? 2 months then, or 3 months, or if there's others that are applying for it? And this is, I'm understanding this is throughout Illinois, or what competition is there, and how long does that process, would that logically take? Can you estimate that?
Again, this is the first time that a demolition grant has been solicited by the state. So I can only base it on the timelines of other CDBG program components. And the shortest time that we've typically been able to complete an application is right at 2 months. And that again is more related to the aspects like the public hearings, and you actually have to have the application completed by the time you do the public hearing, so you can present the application during the public hearings. And then, you know, you've got the required time to post the public hearings. And in the past, the shortest timeline has been 2 months.
Mr. Parrott?
So, when was the grant posted, and when is it due?
It was,
Okay, the demolition, or I should say the community revitalization component of the CDBG grant programs is what they call a rolling deadline, which means it's ongoing until they run out of funds. So we could wait until December of this year to apply. There's a high probability all the funds will be expended by that time.
When was it posted?
The notice of funding opportunity was posted on June 15th.
June 15th. So not even a month. Then we already have applicants already submitted, and it takes 2 months to submit an application?
there's at least one that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It is possible that
Yes.
they had some of the pre-work done already, which streamlined it, but
And that's very common because the CDBG grants are a regular annual grant program. So you can anticipate a lot of what's required to go into the grant applications prior to the release of the grant. Plus, the state has had webinars for at least the last 2.5 months related to the various CDBG grant programs that were upcoming. So there was a lot of information available to communities prior to the June 15th release date.
And the $250,000, is it strictly only for demolition, Or it be paid, used to be paid for salaries or anything of that nature?
If the demolition is being completed by city workers, then that would be a component of the budget, which would be the compensation for those workers.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. O'Donohue?
So Uriah said in the beginning that we have to possess this building before the grant can be awarded or before we even can start on this, because it's not a building that we possess at the moment, correct?
Correct. So Wes can speak to that timeline.
No, we don't. But a few weeks ago, the council authorized me to move forward with the tax sale auction. So that's in early August. So I think in conversations we had, the due diligence prior to the actual potential purchase would hopefully suffice for the grant application. And then with the auction in mind, we would, if we were to be successful, we would have it prior to that anyway. So,
Mr. Hoblet?
So that was going to be part of my comment / question, is that for the purposes of the grant, we come August, if we are awarded the property, we can enter into contract, we could pay for it. But historically, and I've spoken again with them down south there, that law firm, we don't get the deed for 60 to 90 days, and it's usually 90 days after that. And if the idea is that the property has to be deeded to us first, filed, before we can even apply, then we have potentially a 90-day wait time, before we can even submit that, which could be problematic. I could do what I can to try to push them to move quicker with it down there, but we are kind of at their mercy to get that deed to us.
My understanding in having conversations, and one of them was with Ms. Bell, was that if we had, say for instance, we went through the bid process and then we received notification that we were the highest bidder, and then the intent is we would then acquire the property, that could suffice. Not at will, it could. So I think that would be up to Greg and others to make that determination with the agency and confirm.
Okay.
We've been successful in the past with other applications where the property hasn't been, the property purchase hasn't been completed yet, but a documentation showing the agreement between the municipality and the current owner is in place, that the purchase would be completed within a time frame that would be within any grant period. So if we assume that the grant period was 1 calendar year, if you had an agreement with the current property owner that a purchase would be completed prior to that expiration of the grant period, and within a timeline to actually complete the demolition, we should be successful.
Mr. Anderson, did you have a question?
Yeah, so if I understand it right, these funds have been available in previous years, previous time periods, and do they anticipate that they're going to be available again down the road? And if so, if for some reason we miss the time frame because maybe the funds are exhausted or there's other complications, is the work that's been invested, prior to find out that maybe we're not awarded, would that still carry over to be used for the next round of funds, or do we have to start all over from scratch again?
Greg,
I'd like to speak into part of that.
Okay.
The way that they have the funds listed on here is that it's a rolling basis for application. However, they said that you can only apply for a demolition once per year. Based on the way that that's written, I would anticipate that looking at the engagement of communities with the demolition funds, if they see that there's a great community need for it, they will likely replenish them. Now, regarding the other portion of the question, I'll have to defer to one of the other experts with that. But to me, it looks like it appears to be something where, based on their rolling status, that they are seeking, they're anticipating replenishing funds year after year.
And I think Mr. Anderson's question is, if we do all the let's say that we enter into the agreement with Mr. Sutton, he does all the legwork up front, and then the money runs out. Even if they don't replenish, and we're going to do this again next year, can the work and time that's already been invested through that agreement then be reapplied to a future grant request? I think that's the basis of your question, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So to answer that question, I'll answer it in two parts. One would be that the state would have to reinstitute the demolition component. Again, this is the first year that they've done it. And so we don't have a track record of them replenishing it in a second year or releasing a NOFO for that component. But if they do follow the track record of the other CDBG components and do release it again next year, most of the work that is done, as long as there's no significant changes to the condition of the building, then most of the work would be able to be used. In any differences would be dependent upon what changes that the state would make in the application requirements, and as well as the level of funding they would provide. So this year they're providing up to $250,000 for one building. Next year they could keep it at that, they could increase it, they could decrease it. You could anticipate that a significant amount of the work done this year would be used for the same application in subsequent years.
Okay. What other questions are there? Mr. Becky?
And I think this might be directed for Uriah at the beginning. So there were three options. The one was renovation of the current building, demolition of the current building, and using it as a green space, which is the $250,000 grant, or a streetscape option. I didn't know what the difference was.
The Oasis
Yes.
demo or restoration is one grant. Streetscape is the other grant. We're going to apply for two grants,
Okay,
two
so
separate projects.
What are the differences between the streetscape and the green space?
The Oasis, the first one, the demolition that's been proposed, would be to demolish the Oasis building. As part of that grant, if we do take the money and we do the demolition, the requirement of that grant is that it must be green space for at least 5 years. So that's the green space. So when we get it down to the ground, it has to be green space and used. We've had some discussions about what that could look like as far as community use, and Uriah kind of touched on that in the beginning of that. The streetscape is the best way to describe it. It's laying in new sidewalk. It's making the other part of downtown look just like Pulaski Street.
So it doesn't have really anything to do specifically with Oasis, just in general.
Correct. Two separate projects.
So the follow-up question on that, what is the requirement by the state, or what limitations is the state saying with this 5-year green space thing? What limitations are they going to put on that demolition if that is the option that we follow?
I'll allow the experts to answer that question.
If the question is, if you do the demolition and there's the requirement of it remaining green space for 5 years, at least 5 years, then the only limitations is if you redevelop that property, there's a high probability the state would request within that 5-year period, if you redevelop the property, the state would require some or all of the grant to be repaid.
There are two separate grants that can be applied for: the demolition grant and the streetscape. And those are sort of separated, but I agree with what you're saying. Great with relation to the demolition.
Because I was just looking specifically at the terminology of what the requirement is or the restrictions on green space. What is the definition of keeping it green space? Do they define that in some type of a document that says this is what a green space is, and you can't vary from that green space for that next 5-year period of time? Does that make sense?
I mean, I think they can give you the definition, but I mean, in layman's terms, it's an outdoor space that you utilize for community use. I mean, it's green space.
The way that they have it listed on this is that demolition projects cannot be redeveloped for another purpose for a minimum of 5 years, is the way they have it. So we can make it into this green space, but it's what my assumption is, and I will caveat that this is an assumption, is that they don't want municipalities to use this to perform a demolition for some form of business or corporate client and then outsource that to state funds to have a municipality do a business's dirty work for them. That's my assumption. That may not be correct, but they haven't specified that it must be a green space, but that's the most likely outcome of a demolition and renovations in those locations.
From a state perspective, and I guess Greg or Warren or Marcy or Uriah, what would be an appropriate definition of green space from the state's perspective? Are you aware? I think that's what Mr. Becky's asking.
Well, I'll step in and share some examples of other projects that I've seen. For instance, in Alton, where they did a revitalization project and got a grant, they're using that space for food trucks. So it's not developed. It's a meeting space, a community space where people can join, and food trucks come and park in the area. And it's also used for a farmer's market. So those are uses that will not go against the definition that you've been provided. So there are community benefit uses that can be utilized in that time that would not run afoul of that definition.
Does that help? Okay. Mr. Hoblet?
I would like to revisit again, not sound like a broken record, about the 60, 90-day aspect for getting the deed. As we represented that you've seen some success, getting grants for municipalities or that do not exactly own, but that's in contract to get the property. But you also, as I understand, this is like the first time these funds are being made available for this purpose, correct? And if that's the case, and the state is given many applications, and the money is going to be going very fast. And there is a bit of speculation built into this, but wouldn't they be just prioritizing people or municipalities that own the property at that period of time? If they have ours and they have 50 others where they own it, wouldn't they prioritize those? Would we be put on the back end potentially? I'm looking to your expertise in this regard.
So I think part of what the mayor has already done is work on visibility, and the mayor has communicated with the department manager for this particular grant to raise awareness of Lincoln's application. I think that you would continue to communicate with the department as well as with your state elected officials to assist in raising the awareness of the City of Lincoln's grant application. That is one of the primary ways of. I'm sorry, I was talking when you spoke.
No, you're okay. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, again, raising the awareness of the city's potential application here is one of the ways of bringing your application to the top. It doesn't guarantee, that you'll end up being, receiving a grant, but it does lift you up when there are others that are assisting in making the department aware of the application as well as the governor's office. And I think that's one of the reasons that you're working, are looking to work with the team that you have on the call here, because that's where we all come into play, is helping to lift the application from that pile of 50 there towards the top. And I think there's other ways as well, and part of that is in creating the narrative in the application that demonstrates the value to the community of Lincoln that this project would bring, as well as how it affects the state's priorities here, as well as addresses the national initiatives that we're required to address in the grant application as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
With the cap on the grant for the demolition being $250,000, has there been any contact with any excavators to try to maybe get an estimate on what it would take to bring this building down and secure the neighboring walls, next to the property right there? I mean, do we think $250,000 would cover such a project?
The information that Uriah shared in the beginning when he was speaking about he thought that it would cover most or maybe some overages, that information was driven based on conversations with Mr. Woodhull and his knowledge. So Wes, do you want to address that question?
To answer your question, no, there's been no conversations with any contractors. That'd be a bid process later. But to put in perspective, the Sangamon Street, that's about the only thing we had comparable. That was $265,000, which equates to about $35 a foot demo. So this one would get closer to $215, $220. Now that includes some rehab work we did, tuck pointing, foundation, and that sort of stuff. So that was the total cost, if I recall. That's been 3 years ago. So costs change obviously, but my best guess is it would be $250 would be doable, but I think there probably would be some overages, so certainly with the application, the green space.
Especially when you don't know the unforeseen of the wall between the
Unfortunately,
two buildings.
Well, with that other building, now that was a certain situation with the fire, but there was 40,000 plus 48,000 that went into that unforeseen. We couldn't see it until the rest of the building was gone.
Yes. Okay.
This one, there's a bunch of what ifs there once you get into tearing it down. So, but 250 is certainly a good number to be at. I don't think you'd be a ton higher than that.
Okay. Thank you.
What else? Okay.
Mayor?
Mr. Gonzo.
So these grants, if approved, will they cover the entire cost of this demolition and repurposing, if so to speak, of this property?
Well, I think as Wes was just mentioning, the intent is to cover the lion's share of it, but until you get into it, you don't know if there's going to be some overages. Uriah had mentioned that there could possibly be some overages.
I mean, we don't have even a ballpark figure at this point in time.
Just what Wes just described is the best we have based on comparables.
I mean, I think if I understood what he was talking about estimated costs to do this, but I'm talking about how much of it will a grant cover?
It'll cover $250,000.
That's it, though. So if
the
there's
cap.
overages, that won't.
Then we're going to have that conversation with you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's a very good point. And you and I talk frequently, so I know that this gives you heart stress when we talk about this stuff. But the reality of it is that building has sat there since 2012. It is getting worse. So dangerous that the fire department don't even recommend going in there anymore. And we have to do something. And also to Mr. Parrott, his point, he's brought it up multiple times about acquiring this property so that we could, at least address that issue and come up with a feasible solution that benefits the community. And I think what's been presented is probably the best option. And I don't want to get into the weeds when I say this, so don't go any further than this. But that being green space, there are plenty of options that could be presented to tie this into our tourism program too. I spoke with a gentleman. I'll put this out there. There's no confirmation, so it's just an idea. Keep that in mind. It was brought to my attention that the marquee on the theater is in terrible shape, right? It is. If you go look at it, some of the panels are coming out. Other locations along Route 66 have taken marquees and turned them into attractions. I contacted the owner of the theater today, and he would donate that to us if we wanted to take that, relocate it across the street, do something. It could be outdoor space for dining. It could be a space for somebody to play acoustic music. I mean, the possibilities are endless with green space. I'm just trying to give you some examples of what that could be. Doesn't mean it has to be, doesn't mean it will be. It's just, that's how you get things going, is you start kind of kicking some ideas out there. So we would put it to use if the building was brought down. It's just the cost of restoration is astronomical. Chuck would definitely be mad at us if we went down that road. So, Tim, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Are we done? I'm sorry.
Mr. Hoblet wanted
Okay,
to
I'm
speak
sorry.
first.
So, council, previously, you authorized Mr. Woodhall to place a bid on this property. I've been working. I made some inquiries to the treasurer and to the law firm that handles these tax sales down south, because the procedure has changed as to how we utilize these. A new bill went into effect that does take care of this change. So everything's very new, and we've been workshopping ways to how we're going to be dealing with these moving forward. Right now, if you were to submit as I understand it, a paper bid, an old-fashioned take the bid, you would be doing so. You would take it to the treasurer, but you would also write a check, which would require the expenditure of funds potentially at this time. And if you win the bid, then they cash your check. Okay, that would potentially also require an ordinance for the purchase. Now, speaking with a law firm down south, they indicated to me that if you do a digital bid, if you go online, because you can do it online, funds are not taken in at that period of time. When you are awarded the bid, you have 10 days to approve and to submit the money. I told the law firm down south, well, we're a municipality. If you award us the bid, like say on a Wednesday after a voting day, on the same week as a voting meeting, you have to go on the cow, and then the voting meeting thereafter would be 2 more weeks. That's way past 10 days. He's going to talk with his tech firm down there. He thinks that because of municipal voting requirements that we would alleviate that. But he said he would talk with them. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a yes. So with the idea being, I don't want to glum things up, so to speak, and like pass an ordinance for the purchase of property, and then if we don't get the bid, revoke it. But if we're going to have to do a paper bid, I would just say that I would like the authority or like your blessing to put those 2 ordinances for the purchase on next week's voting meeting if necessary. That's all.
Any concerns with that? Okay. Yeah, we'll place those on the regular agenda for next week then. Can you get the details to Ms. Bateman for the agenda items?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Becky and then Mr. Bateman.
The reason I asked the questions about the restrictions is because we're dealing with the state of Illinois, and this is part of the grant writing process, that what our requirements are as a city, once we tear that down, what we can do. I know you can't develop on it for 5 years, I understand that, but are they requiring anything else to make it greener than just tearing down the building and leaving it as is? Because that will be the extra expense over the demolition. The demolition that we're talking about is just taking it down and not doing anything else with it.
Correct.
So that would be the extra expense as well that Mr. Conzo would be looking at. And again, if it is a requirement of the state to say, no, once you tear it down, you have to do something else besides just tearing down the building and putting some grass there. I'm sure they have a specific requirement that we must follow. If this grant is that complicated, I'm sure that's set into it as well, instead of just that 5-year development issue.
So when you
in the narrative of the application, we would want to define what the end condition will be for the property. And that definition could be anywhere from a green lawn that is maintained, being mowed and kept in good condition. It could be a downtown, based on the location. It could be a downtown spot with park benches there and lighting for use by the public there. We would define what the end condition would be. The state might have commentary on that, but typically they're not going to prescribe anything more than a well-maintained open space.
Okay, thank you.
So I did a Google search, and it referenced the Illinois EPA website, and the statement says, the state of Illinois defines green space broadly as land consisting of natural vegetation, including trees, shrubs, grasslands, wetlands, set apart for recreational, aesthetic, or ecological purposes. So it sounds pretty broad. Yeah. So, Mr. Bateman?
Two things. One, I was just going to comment on what John said. He can bring an ordinance and we can vote on a not to exceed price. If it exceeds it, then the ordinance, goes away. That was my suggestion for purchasing it. I thought we did that a couple weeks ago when we told him to go ahead and make a bid.
The idea being, Mr. Bateman, we gave Mr. Woodhull the wherewithal to go bid, the idea to go bid, with the idea being that when you submit a bid, you're not actually submitting the check with the bid. When I talked about the two different procedures with the with Ms. Thomas and with the attorney down south, is that there is two different ways to go about it. One would require actually submitting a check at the time, which would require an expenditure of funds from the city. Typically, my ordinances for the purchase do not include a purchase amount on there. But I believe the authority is also requested for the check to be issued. And that's why I'm asking for the option, just in case, because in case this attorney comes back from or I don't hear from him in time from down south and indicates to me that that he talked with his firm and they're going to be sticking hard and fast to their 10-day rule for those online bids, then we would have to do the paper route, which would have to do the ordinance now.
You'd have to argue with Chuck on doing anything digital. So digital is the way to go. But my second thing is, I foresee this as a concrete slab with benches, and like you said, we don't have a good track record in this city on keeping anything green looking nice. And I just don't want it to become a weed-infested dandelion forest.
Mm-hmm.
So I would want to do concrete with, like you suggested, benches or something.
I think concrete would be the opposite of green space.
Absolutely, but we're better at maintaining it.
Right, but if we don't
We can
turn
put
it
a
into
bush.
green space, then they're gonna ask for the money back.
You know, we can put a bush or a small section of grass. So,
It can be figured out.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just think if we turn it into grass, it's gonna look like the lot between Mr. Hoblet's office and the alley behind there.
I would like to add a clarification if I could, Mayor. The way that this grant is written, from my bit of research on this and from going through the presentations and kind of doing a summary of it, I don't think it's necessary that it becomes a green space. It just cannot be redeveloped for another purpose. Green space is one of the most logical spots to put for downtown because that was something that was identified in the downtown redevelopment plan. However, if I don't believe that it's something that the state will balk at if we decide to put some pavers in there or something like that.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bateman wasn't talking about some pavers. He's talking about a concrete slab in its place. Correct?
Something that doesn't have to be mowed. I don't care if it's pavers, it could be brick. It could be a nice brick patio or whatever.
Or here's an idea. We could address your mowing concerns and tackle it that way.
That would be awesome. But that
There you
would
go.
cost money, and then I'd have to talk with Chuck again.
Well, we all talk to Chuck. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Bateman?
The only other thing is, when we're designing the streetscape as part of the electrical opponent, I would hope that they would take in consideration to put RV boxes at the ends of each intersection like we do have on Pulaski Street, because those are unbelievably utilized for food trucks, music, any other festivals we have, you know, even if we have to get donations to do that, to put them in the sidewalk like what we did on Pulaski Street.
I mean, as long as it's allowed per the grant, then yeah, we can spec that in the design. And Uriah had made mention earlier, and I forgot to clarify. He was talking about the downtown revitalization plan that was done several years back. There's actually two of them. One's a streetscape document and one's a broader document. That's what he was referring to. And if you guys have never seen those, let me know. Uriah's got a copy. I think I got some downstairs in my office. Glad to share them with you. They have renderings and drawings of what they thought downtown could look like at the time. Some of it was taken into consideration, some of it not.
As long as there's no bump outs, I'm okay.
Big bump out right on Broadway. No, I'm just joking. Mr. Becky?
All right, quick question. So the streetscape grant and the green grant, are those two separate charges, or is that one charge $9,500 for both of those grant asks?
Greg, does your agreement cover both the grant for both projects?
They are two separate applications. We did submit, at the time, it was our understanding that the one application would be for demolition. If there are two, there would be an additional charge for a second, but it's not, given that a lot of the information would be collected in the first application, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be two times what we've already submitted. I would have to go back and spec out the charge, and then I could send that to you as well.
Yeah, if you could do that. Yeah, if you could get me a new agreement with the updated spec charge in there, I can send that out to the council for their awareness. And if the council does agree this evening to put it on the regular agenda, we can do an amendment to that agreement if we have to, or that cost. Okay. Anything else from anybody? Anybody on the call have anything else to add? Okay, I think we're good. So,
well, I just would say from a timing of submitting, if you are going to do two grants, you probably want to think strategically about how you submit those two, because if you're planning on the streetscape to cover costs for the demolition end result, the green space, or, you know, however the final condition is, and you don't get the demolition, then, you know, you've got another application at risk as well from a performance standpoint. Or, you know, you could put yourself in a situation where you're competing against yourself with two applications out simultaneously, because there is only a certain amount of money, and the state typically will, you know, want to make awards across the state. So you want to think strategically about how we position either the timing of submitting the two grants, or how you position those with the state, and how you advocate for Lincoln receiving both of those. I'm not trying to dissuade you, but you know, from doing two, but you really have to make sure that we position two applications from Lincoln for the same pool of money, because demolition and the streetscape are out of the same community revitalization component, and it's limited to $13 million statewide. So if you went for the full amount with both your grants, you're asking for 10% of the total grant pool just for Lincoln.
Okay. All right. We'll talk more about that, Greg. Okay. So is the council okay with placing the agreement with Mr. Sutton on the regular agenda for next week?
At a minimum, the demolition grant. I do agree with what he's saying. We got to tear the building down first. Let's secure that money, and then if we have to, in a few months, go after the state grant if he thinks that we're going to compete against ourselves going for both.
Yeah, the only reason that they were both presented at the same time was because every conversation that we've had about this topic leading up to tonight stated that we could apply for two grants even though they're separate. So if the next conversation based on Mr. Sutton's recommendation here is to stagger them to be more competitive, I guess, then I agree with you that the demo is step one, right? So, and perhaps the team here that's on the call, we can have a follow-up at some point and then figure out what that looks like and then bring that back to the council for your awareness and consideration.
At a minimum, the demolition grant.
Okay.
On the regular agenda.
Everybody agree? The 9,500 is just for the demolition grant, correct, Mr. Sutton?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that will work for that one. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Everybody on the call, thank you so much for dialing in, and we will be in touch. Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. Ms. McClellan.
Weren't there some incidentals? Were we going to name a number in the that we vote on it? There's incidentals like meals and things like that. So is there not to exceed or something like that?
We can put that in there. There was like $50 for a meal, $200 for overnight. Yeah. And I can get with Mr. Sutton before next week and get some details on that.
Thank you.
I defer to the attorney, but I don't think so. So the agreement that's been presented with Mr. Sutton's company it also includes the 9,500 plus some incidentals. I think Ms. Bateman's question is, do we need the details in the agenda item?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So I'm just putting 9,500 plus incidentals.
Well, we can do that.
Add $1,000 to it, 10.5. Surely, at $250 a night, and $50 for meals, he's not gonna, I wouldn't think he would blow through $1,000.
I think it might be more.
Well, the 9,500 we paid up front, correct?
Correct. So he would bill us for all the incidentals. We can,
That or that'd go through a payment of bills if he bills us. I mean, you can approve it on payment of incidentals on payment of bills,
Right.
correct?
yep. We have a capital projects fund, right? I know Mr. Conzo likes that one. What we would do is the same, we do the same thing that I did today with Mr. Conzo, have a conversation about where those funds come from, the line item that makes the most sense as we move forward with this effort. Mr. Conzo, do you have anything to add?
As far as I said earlier, the grant writing, I think the GEO bond would cover that as long as this space will be used for some public use.
Okay.
So what are we putting?
Just put plus incidentals on there. And then we'll get more details on the amount. Okay. Okay, moving on. The next item is item number 6, request a permit, Copper and Oak, Friday, July 17th, 2026. Ms. Bateman?
This was for, if this was Monday night, it's for this Friday night. Copper and Oak is wanting to close the street next to them, which is Delavan Street, during Third Friday. So it'd be 3 to midnight, though.
Mr. Bateman?
I did reach out to Joe and voiced Mrs. McQuillan's concern, which is a legitimate one, that this needs to be the last time because we're just opening the door for this to happen with other bars down the road. So he said he understood and he will do his best to make sure he gets his stuff in a timely manner.
Mr. Becky and then Ms. McClellan. I'm sorry.
The,
It
So the
says June.
date-
It says June. It's supposed to be July.
okay, so
Yeah.
on both spots, the
yeah,
date of
7/17.
the event and they're at the bottom,
Yeah.
usage of property. Okay, just make note of that. Okay, thank you.
Ms. McClellan?
Yes, and it was just the, just getting it in on time that was what I was having trouble with. So thank you, Joe.
Yep. I agree. I mean, we don't want to be put in a position where we have to decline a request because of the timing, so hopefully anybody else that's going to request one is watching. Anything else on that, Ms. Bateman? So do we need to put that on the consent agenda next week?
Yeah.
Okay. Council okay doing that? Okay. Item number 6 we'll place on the consent agenda. Next up is item number 7, ordinance adopting amendment number 2 to appropriation ordinance fiscal year 2025-2026. Mr. Conzo?
Yeah, I think this is more or less self-explanatory as you had passed the previous amendment. This deals with some of the extra building and grounds expenses we had. Part of that, the electric and the gas especially, were due to two things. One of those is some rate increases that we didn't fully anticipate, and the other being the acquisition of a new building. Normally, we don't do this between sub-funds. I did check with the auditors on this before doing this, and we can do this based on the fact that, these are still within the general fund, which normally you would avoid doing that from one sub-fund to the other, but these are unanticipated expenses that we could not have foreseen, although we try. We don't always do that. So that's what a lot of this is. The others are more or less self-explanatory. We did have additional revenue because of the Route 66 tourism grant, and you see that has been applied to the purchase and improvements in the building that is now our museum and the mural display, which was also not anticipated at the start of the year, but we've also got additional revenue that we didn't anticipate at the beginning of the year because of this grant, and that will continue on into the current year. And that has, in the current year's appropriation, that is written into that. And then we also had some additional revenue from the sale of surplus property by the Streets and Alley Department, and Superintendent Landers did an excellent job with that. And we've used that to apply toward payments on street department vehicles, which would save us having to borrow that money.
Questions for Mr. Conzo? Okay, place that on the regular agenda. Okay. Place item number 7 on the regular agenda. Next up's item number 8, appropriation ordinance fiscal year 2026-2027. Mr. Conzo?
Thank you, Mayor. Those of you who've been here for a while understand the difference, or most of you who have been here for a while understand the difference between the budget and the appropriation. Budget is a plan for what you want to spend. The appropriation is what you can, a limit on what you can spend if there's a need to spend it, first of all, and if there's funds available to do it within that fund. The main thing you would look at in here is when you exceed the budget, is there a need to do that? I think I know that I sent to all of you a little chart that shows what we did during the past year, and you will see that in each department we did very well at spending not only less than the appropriation, which is the upper limit, but spending, for the most part, spending less than the budget was planned. And if you, this is for the general fund, spent $9,674,202 out of a budget of $10,106,000, an appropriation of $10,639,410. We did have some where we exceeded the budget, and you can see where those are. I'd be happy to talk in detail about that if you want me to. I would also emphasize with this that we did have in the budget the provision for a loan from the Sewer O&M Fund, $403,746. We did not execute that loan, implement it. It is in the budget again for this year. The reason we didn't do it last year is there wasn't an immediate need for it, but that provision is contained in the current year's budget and in the appropriation ordinance as well.
Mr. Parrott?
So for when we approved the budget, we had to move money out of capital improvement to do a budget, to make the budget. But now we have this appropriation for how much additional more?
Well, if you look at the last page of
For the public.
Yeah, let's go to page. Yep. The budget is $10,557,878 for the general fund. The appropriation for the general fund is $10,838,084. So it's a little less than $300,000.
So where's the additional $300,000 coming from? Since
well, it would come from the revenue that we take in, and it would also come from the fund balance that we have if we need to spend that. And that's why when you asked for you wanted to know what we did in the last year, and that's why I put that document together that I just described. We would assume, or we would hope, that in this coming year, or the current year, as in the last year, the expenditures would be less than both the appropriation and the budget. Certainly less. It certainly should be much less than the appropriation, and we would hope less than the budget as well. But you don't know. That's why with some of these lines, liability insurance being one of them, that's something that if you look at what it was 4 or 5 years ago, it's gone up considerably. And some of these things you don't know. Not only do you not know that at the time you pass the budget, we still don't know that today because some of these will take effect January 1st.
Yeah, I guess my concern is
what?
Is where the money's coming from to.
Well, the fund balance that you see in the monthly report that you get, there's a fund balance.
So if there's a fund balance, then why did we remove the capital improvement funds?
Well, we didn't remove.
We had that fund.
The only thing we changed with the budget and the appropriation for the capital projects fund is half of the video gaming tax, which from its inception in whatever that was, 2000, 12 until 2021, 22, I think I'd have to go back and look, was always receipted into the general fund. And then a couple of aldermen, one of whom is still with us here in the council, decided they wanted to change that and take that out of the general fund, put it in the capital projects fund. And then I recommended this last time that we not do that because we want to at least start out the year planning to, to have our revenue at least meet or exceed the amount of the expenditures. If you spent everything, and you have no way of knowing at the beginning of the year how much of that budget you're going to spend and how much of the appropriation you're going to spend. So the idea is to at least start out with a balance so that the amount of the revenue that you expect to get, it meets or exceeds the amount that you have in the budget.
Thank you.
Ms. McClellan.
I just wanted to give an example. It's not foo-foo things that we're talking about here that we're just funding because somebody wants to. It's like streetlights doubled. The cost for electricity for the streetlights, the appropriation went from 60 to 120,000. So it's like they're just costs an increase that I don't think anybody could ever plan for that kind of increase in that. So it's things that are they're important and they're necessary and they're it's not just somebody's got a good idea or anything like that. I just wanted to share that. So.
Mr. Conzo?
Thank you, Alderman McClellan. I did want to say that both Alderwoman McClellan and Alderman Clemmons spent a lot of time not only on this appropriation, but even more so with the budget that you passed late in April for the current year. They both dug into it and spent a lot of time, talked with me and with the various department heads. I think the most recent one being Mr. McCoy here about a week or so ago, right? And with the others as well over, especially during the budget time, sat down with all of them. And I also want to thank each and every one of the department heads and their staff who worked on this too and put a lot of time into doing this. And as in previous years, did not, and the last year's results show what I mean. You don't see a lot of excess. You don't see any excess in it. You see a lot of thoughtful planning and trying to stay within our means, within what we can afford, and in fact coming in under budget and certainly under the appropriation.
Mr. Becky?
Being the new guy here, we've had a number of talks and met with you, so I understand budgeting. It's my weak point. So understanding appropriations, but in just a very personal way of budgeting, whenever any business or bank that I've been involved with, they ask for my budget, not for my appropriations, when I'm putting, asking for money. So this is new and an odd understanding. I think those that are watching to know what appropriation is. So if I could just briefly just run through what I interpret it to be.
Okay.
So if you all set a budget, that's already padded to a point of what you know from history of what you're going to spend per year. It's a guesstimate, but it's a healthy guesstimate. So the appropriations would be like an emergency fund. You don't want to get into that. You don't want to use it, but it will come up, so you make that plan in order for it to be covered, and it still has to be fluid, right? I mean, it still has to be available. So a while back, a month or two back, you were describing we should stay within the federal guidelines of a certain percentage of being fluid, I guess, if that's the right term.
It wasn't federal; it was S&P or Standard and Poor's as fund balance. I think is probably what I talked about.
And it should be 80%, or ideally it would be 80%.
Yeah,
but we're at like 30.
Well, now your fund balance, at the high end would be at 12 months, and that's pretty hard to achieve. But you don't want to go much under 4 or 5 months, and most of the time, if you can achieve 6 to 8 months, that's very good.
What is the danger for a city if they do that?
Well, you'll see it, and we just did. Although Alderman Bateman doesn't think we spend much on roads, we just borrowed or issued bonds in the amount of $8.25 million for the Fifth Street Road project. If we had a healthier fund balance, our interest rates likely, in fact, I know would have been lower than they are. The other thing that would have helped, this is kind of off the subject, or kind of a sidebar, but it would be if we had did better at funding our pension, their police and fire pensions too, because Standard & Poor's will look at those things as well as other things. On the positive side, our debt was not excessive, so they look at that because now you're incurring more debt. 8.25 million is more than we've ever, I think, issued bonds for.
So can appropriations be looked at as like an investment in the future, a safety net of
It's a
investment
safety
in
net.
a sense?
It's not an investment, but it's a safety net. You had talked about like businesses and other places, you don't have an appropriation, but the reason is with municipalities and other units of government, they're governed by state statutes, which specify that you set these upper limits on what you're going to spend, and the reason for that is to keep to prevent insolvency at the local level.
So the ideal really is to look at the budget figures, not above them.
Yeah, ideally you want to come in at or under the budget, but the others, I think Alderwoman McClellan described it perfectly, that the example she gave, which was the electricity for the streetlights, electricity for other things too, but that was one of them.
And that is the safety net of the appropriations.
Yes.
Reason for having that extra amount.
Exactly. Yes, sir. Thank you for that question, Alderman Becky. That's a very good question.
Okay. Anything else on the appropriation ordinance? Okay, place that on the regular agenda. Okay, we'll place item number 8 on the regular agenda. Okay, that brings us to announcements. Before we get into announcements, Mr. McCoy would like to speak to the council and share some tourism-related information with you. So.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to update you a little bit since we had the opening of the museum, and excuse me, give you some stats and a little bit of information, and then I've got some thank yous that I want to share as well. So during our grand opening this Saturday, we had over 500 in attendance. Our little gift shop, which isn't even really fully stocked yet, did over $1,600 in sales. We had 40 states represented with people there, which was pretty mind-blowing for the grand opening itself. And we even had visitors from Australia who were traveling Route 66 and then stayed for the ribbon cutting, so that was pretty neat. Today alone, we had 54 visitors from 10 different states. We're also setting up all kinds of different events. So we have a gentleman who's going to be running Route 66, and he's making it a stop now at the museum here in Lincoln. And so they'll do some fanfare and some different things with that. And we have a motorcycle group that's coming in here shortly. I don't have the exact date, but 225 just in this one. Yeah, exactly. So that's all good news, and we're really excited about it. The majority of the work, as you all know, is now completed. We will have a phase 2 that we're working on now, and it'll be coming out. That's the 4D theater and kind of a museum within the museum is what I call it. So it's kind of nice because a lot of the tools have been my tools from home, and I still have Christmas decorations on my house, so it's kind of nice that's going back. But I also want to just kind of stress some thank yous here, because in the grand opening, when you're standing there and you're doing a ribbon cutting and it's hot, it's hard to mention everybody that is involved. And I just want to say that I've been involved with this type of thing quite a bit, not only from my hometown, but with other communities that we've helped build attractions and so forth. But Lincoln is really unique in the aspect that the entire community came out to be part of it. And I loved that. It blew my mind. And just to start with, Lexi Groves, of course, is the assistant director here. She's done a fantastic job doing things that are really outside of the job itself, getting involved in the construction and the setup and all those different things. Ashley next door, when we needed help carrying something in, or, hey, I'm coming on my lunch break. Can I bring you guys some sodas? Whatever she could do, she was always right there. Even the mayor stopping in to paint, and I have pictures of that. He's cleaning up the town, I like to say. But, stopping in his time off just to, help here and there and help us get us to that point was fantastic. Several of the council stopped in, and all of your support is wonderful, especially Sam and Steve, because they sit on the CVB board with the Logan County Tourism Bureau as the representatives of the city and have done a fantastic job, because most of the work that has happened in this complex and this museum has been funded by that CVB grant through DCEO, and that is made all of this just jump off the page. So I appreciate that. All the city departments. What a lot of people don't understand in the city is the people behind me get all the complaints. Oh, the snow removal. Oh, the whatever. Oh, this, that, and that's what they hear all day. And every single one of them is involved in some point with the museum, whatever we needed. But one really stands out, and that's Superintendent Landers. Now he's going to give me a hard time after this because I know he doesn't like the recognition. But there's been a couple times, like with the installation of the big penny or our sign element, where I had to give him a call at the last minute because the penny we were told was 2,000 pounds, and it ended up being 3,800 pounds or something. So it's almost twice what we thought. And I had my equipment there, but it wasn't good enough equipment. And I'd give him a call, and the answer was always, sure, let me see what I can do. And the next thing I know, equipment's rolling in. The superintendent Landers himself is rolling in. He's standing there, and they're just jumped right in to help. And while they get all the negative stuff, just because that's what's easy for the public to do, I want the public to understand that they were a huge part of this, every single one of them, except for maybe the fire chief, because he's making me spend a lot of money. But they've been fantastic, so I just want to point that out. And a very special thank you to a lot of individuals. I'll go kind of quickly here, but I want, because this is a local thing and the community's watching these, I want them to know how much they're appreciated. Lincoln Rotary, and of course Darlene has been really instrumental. She's called me a lot. We want to have cookies and do stuff, so they made cookies and things for us. The entire Groves family and the McIntyre home appliance let us, borrow some equipment, like the little mover things, which they have. Terry McIntyre, of course, is an unwavering volunteer. She's there almost as much as I am in getting this started and putting things together. We Three Sweets donated a cake for the grand opening. Carrie Groves donated a cake, and all the stuff you saw out front. They were even having little watermelon cups with watermelon slices in it. Went through 3 large watermelons. And she did all that work. Of course, Mark Klein with the big penny, Matt Pryor, who is the artist that did the Lincoln statue you see inside, and the artwork that's right behind the seat where you take your photo. Of course, John and Darlene Rue, who donated the train exhibit. The car exhibit was Bob Duvall. Bob had this car in an old, farm ground or something outside. I mean, it was in terrible shape. When it brought it in, I went, we can be able to use this thing. But then Titus got involved and said, I don't know, it's just pretty bad shape. Made it look beautiful, did all the painting and restoration on it. Then Brad Grimm, who's out of Morton, he's a pretty famous pinstriper, came in and did all the pinstriping. All of that was donated, all of it. Logan County Tourism Bureau, of course, involved, DCO with the state, and the Route 66 Association of Illinois was also involved and really helped in promoting it. Now, the contractors and vendors that we used was even more so blew my mind, because there is not one that we contracted with that didn't do extra. It wasn't just a job to them and then they leave. Every single one of them ended up donating more. Brad Matthews Construction really stood out because Brad made sure his people were there. We got all kinds of little tasks done. And it was never a nickel and dime thing. It was, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. And they came in even the day before. He brought his entire crew in as a donation and helped us clean and vacuum and wipe things down and everything. So absolutely unbelievable. High-end construction as well. Now it's Andrew and Alexis. Even that morning, they came in early for the grand opening and just helped us clean things up, wipe things down, straighten things up, help stamp the pennies, and did this. And that was just all of their own making. Brady Construction, Tim as well, donated time and labor to help put it together. Tarter Brothers Mechanical, Carpet House did as well. Scott Lindley, of course, creates the murals that you see around town, and he put in extra time and effort in different projects. Wabash Junction, which is a model train shop in Springfield, did a lot of extra work to help us get that put together, as well as the Springfield Model Railroad Club, which was Mike and Ray, the two primary gentlemen there, have come to town multiple times to help us get this train designed and set up. Jim Oscom, who created the sign element and installed it, unfortunately he couldn't be there for the grand opening, but he's coming back to do some final touches and some other pieces that go on that. Hot Frog Designs have been extremely instrumental as well, helping us with the shirts and getting things put together, and they donated quite a bit as well. Lincoln Printers, Michael Taylor, which is a gentleman most of you have probably not heard of, but his company's called When Dinosaurs Attack. But he did all the 3D models and such that are going into the railroad, and countless other people. When we put a call out, we're looking for old records for the radio station, things like this, we almost ended up with more things that we could use, because people in this town would show up with boxes of stuff, and even on their own, can you use this? I've got this old furniture. How about this thing? And it really made it pretty neat, because it brought the community into the museum, so people see, when they visit, they're seeing Route 66, but they're also seeing Lincoln. And I from all the communities I've ever worked with, it blew my mind, just blew my mind. And I just wanted to thank everybody. So I appreciate, Mayor, the time to be able to share that. Are there any quick questions anybody would have for it?
Don't forget the Foxhole allowing us to put the mural on the wall.
Correct. Foxhole with the mural, and then Kevin with the antiques on 5th Street. Everybody's seen the mural now that's lighting up from the back. And that's a lot of the focus that I've got here, is trying to get things lit, light up Lincoln type of a deal for an evening thing. So, and both of those were painted by Scott Lindley as well. So, yep.
Mr. Becky?
Is the official name Museum of Route 66, not Route 66 Museum?
Correct. Museum of Route 66.
Because the Lincoln Daily News did an excellent, I don't know if you put that together. It was like a magazine.
They did that. So Lincoln Daily News, I have not seen it yet,
Oh.
but I've heard it's pretty outstanding.
It talks about
Yeah.
the train, the tons of pictures of the whole, construction part of the sign, even the penny.
Correct.
Oh, is it
so
amazing?
during this entire process, they came. Nyla and Karen came to me and said, we want to do this booklet thing and so forth. And can we get an insight of what's going on? And I said, you bet. I'll share all my photos, videos, all the information, and I did all the way through. But just keep it off the record, because we don't want it all out there, before we open or what and such. And I've had people now telling me today about it. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm really anxious to see it. But it's a really nice keepsake and a little bit of a history, time capsule
So
thing,
that's
if
on
you want.
paper. I mean, people can get a copy.
I
of it, or
believe
is it
it's going to be available on paper. I've been told the ones who've seen it have a digital copy of it, but I don't have that yet.
print
But
it?
I think it's probably in my email. It's been crazy. But yeah, is it going to is it going to
I
be
believe
paper?
it's going to be printed.
Yeah. So it's very nice. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
I think some of the coolest stories from going back to the beginning when we were first trying to figure it out was we did cold calls. We knew it was going to take a lot of people to make this happen. And we did cold calls to people and we're like, hey man, we got this museum thing that we're going to do. Can you donate some time, material, whatever? And I don't recall any one person saying no.
Yeah, we did not have any no's. In fact, they've all gone above and beyond. I don't remember who gave me Bob Duvall's name. It might have been you.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the story with that is that Dave Duvall and I were talking, and one thing leads to another, and he goes, hey, you do know that my brother has Ramon, the car that was in the Pixar film Cars. And I go, I had no clue. And he goes, it's in Lincoln. Next thing I know, I tell Scott that I actually started out with the idea of let's just have him come to the grand opening and be a photo op. Next thing I know, Dave's like, hey, we got a front end of a car. And he's like, let's put it in the gas station. And hey, we need a painter. But I mean, that one story was just like tenfold with everything that happened in there. It was just kind of weird how everything evolved. But
That's exactly right. It just
came forward.
It just kept rolling and rolling to where I just found out that Bob's car, his regular car, and apparently the one inside, during the grand opening, there was another woman in a dress and walking around, and I really wasn't sure who that was. So I've been inquiring because I didn't get a chance to meet her before she left, and they did a photo shoot with her that's heading towards a magazine. So there's just all kinds of things like that just tie into it, and it's a really lot of fun. It's
well,
really
and I'll share this story. This past weekend, I went up to Spirited, and when I was in there, there was a couple sitting at the end of the bar, and someone's in there, and they go, hey, this is the mayor, whatever. And so I start talking with them, and they're the Kramers. And their story is that they're from Indiana, and it was their 40th anniversary. So all they wanted to do is just take off in Chicago and go down Route 66. They ended up in Lincoln, and they stayed overnight in Lincoln because they wanted to see the attractions and stuff. They ate at Gazzardo's, they had drinks. And so the next morning, you know, my wife went to Chicago, or Arizona, and I'm like, yeah, I got some time. So I took them through the museum. And just that one couple spent like $70 in things in that museum. And then they were traveling on to spend others. That's just one story of many. So
yeah. Even in the 2 days that we've been open, just the grand opening day and then today, we've had multiple inquiries of, can you recommend a good hotel locally? That's what we want.
Wasn't today's, I talked to Lexi, I think she told me there's approximately 55 people that came through today.
Correct. 54 was our count.
Yeah.
Yep.
First day past the grand opening, 54 people. Kind of cool.
Yep. From
All
10
right.
different states.
All right. We could go on and on.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. All right. Moving on to announcements. Ms. McClellan.
I don't think I've ever seen him clean without paint on him before.
That's what I said when he walked in. I'm like, get back to work. Does anybody have any before I share an announcement? Okay. I got two things. I got an email from Ameren today, and it's from their community relations person that I've spoke with many times. It starts out about the temperatures and the rising temperatures and how that affects people. And there's a website. And I'll read it off, but we'll put it on our website, www.ameren.com/page/savings. The intent of the email was to share with the community that this page has energy saving recommendations for hot weather, bill assistance and payment support options, and program and tools to help customers manage their energy costs. There's also a brief video on there, and it explains the supply portion of Ameren's bill, which I watched it and I thought it was pretty informational, very beneficial during like our conversations of aggregation. So we'll put that on the main page for a while, and then we'll put it into the aggregation section. So look for that. And then the other one, Third Fridays. It's the last Third Friday of the season. Special note, the band that we have hired is called the 66 Ramblers. Is that the name? So, because the theme is sock hop is the theme. So we got this band. The only caveat, they needed to close the road a little earlier than normal. So instead of road closures at 4:00, that section over there, not all roads downtown, but that section will be closed at 2:00 to allow their sound guy to come in and set up and do the things he needs to support the band. But did you say there's weather predicted that day? Yeah.
Storms.
So maybe the road won't be closed. I don't know. We'll find out. And if it does, I'm sorry to disappoint people ahead of time, but safety first. Okay.
We'll be open as well at the museum if you want to say that.
Oh, yeah. The museum of Route 66 will be open past its normal hours. You're staying open how late that night? Through the end?
Through the end, yep.
Okay.
Is there any way they can park in the back? Because Vauxhall's supposed to have a ban, so they can't park in front.
Yep. Yep. And we do need, I need to talk with Walt about that. We need to start now focusing on that parking lot that we have back behind the building. There's some signage that needs to be removed. Probably need to add some signage, and do some other things. Because some people have said, well, I didn't know I could park there. It says private parking. So we need to get those signs down because it's a public lot and people should be able to use it. Great for Amtrak people too. You look,
We should change the private parking signs to museum.
agreed.
Logo sign parking.
You know, it'd be great for RV parking.
Oh, yeah.
As far as the eye can see.
Yes, you could get multiple RVs in there and buses. Mr. Conzo?
Just one other thing, I think most of you know this, this Saturday, July 18th, Union Pacific steam locomotive, big boy steam locomotive, be coming through town somewhere around 9 o'clock. I would guess it leaves Bloomington. It'll be
8:15.
overnight. Yeah, overnight in Bloomington, leaves at 8:15. They generally go at slower speed because there are so many people alongside the tracks. So you probably, I would guess, somewhere around 9 o'clock. But I would, if you want to see it, I'd get there early because generally any place this, I've seen this, Judy and I have been on an excursion in Missouri using that locomotive several years ago. And people will line the tracks from the entire length of that route. So you're going to see a lot of people there. You want to get there early if you want to see it.
Yep. Okay. All right, anything else? Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Alderman Becky made the motion, Alderman Downs second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. This meeting is adjourned at 7:48 PM.
No, because I haven't.